my name is Greg Zeller. I'm with Sabian Cymbals. I'm a regional manager that covers the eastern seaboard for Sabian. Very happy to be here today. And the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is just give you a brief rundown on our cast cymbal manufacturing process. Basically at Sabian we make two different types of cymbals, as do many of the cymbal manufacturers out there. We make what are called cast cymbals, which is a B20 bronze alloy that's made up of 80% copper, 20% tin. And cast cymbals are generally the what are considered the more professional level cymbals on the market today. We also make what are called B8 cymbals or sheet cymbals, and the B8 name actually refers to the alloy that we use in that particular cymbal. It's a B8 alloy, which means it's 92% copper, 8% tin. The cast cymbal process is what we're really most proud of in our manufacturing, because it's a lot of hand labor and there's a lot of artisan craftsmanship that goes involved in our manufacturing process. The way it works is pretty simple. I usually equate the whole process to making a pizza. It's the easiest way to think about it. We take the raw copper and tin and it gets poured into a casting, which is this device here. Now this casting is very dense and very heavy. This particular casting would probably be for about a 14-inch hi-hat top. Now, obviously you can't appreciate the weight here, but it's a very dense piece of metal. But the interesting thing about this metal, this alloy, is the process that we use to create this casting is a very well-guarded secret. I don't know what the actual process is. There's only a handful of people up at Sabian that do. And the reason for that is because this metal now has some unique musical properties that it would not normally have if not for these processes. If you listen to this, you can actually hear the ring in the metal already. So what happens is the raw copper and tin gets heated, poured into these castings. These castings will then get sorted by weight, depending on, ideally for whatever size cymbal or weight cymbal they're going to become. Once this casting, think of this as the dough for the pizza. This will go into a large oven, 1400 degrees. It looks like a giant pizza oven. They get put in by what looks like a giant pizza shovel, and they'll get superheated. They'll become cherry red hot, and they'll be immediately pulled out of the oven and put into a rolling mill. Rolling mill is nothing more than two steel cylinders, one on top of the other, that can be very accurately set, and it'll start to flatten this metal out. Now during that process, it'll go back into the oven, back into the rolling mill, probably 11 to 15 times, depending on the ultimate diameter of that cymbal. But as it goes through the rolling mill, it's put in at a different orientation each cycle through. The reason for that is twofold. Number one, if you put it in one direction constantly, you're going to end up with a long linear piece of metal, which is not very suitable for making a cymbal. But also, as it goes through the rolling mill, it's actually creating a grain within the metal, similar to a grain in a baseball bat. By mixing up that grain, that adds durability and strength to a cymbal and allows these cymbals to take the abuse that they take without breaking. If you did it in one direction all the time, you'd have a very strong dominant grain. The cymbal would probably break on the first hit, so it's a really critical part. Once this goes through, it's 11 to 15 times. We check it with a micrometer for a specific thickness based on what cymbal it's going to be, and we end up with a piece that's called a blank, which is similar to this. Now this particular blank has already had the bell or the cup pressed into it, but at this point this has not been annealed, or it's not been tempered. So what happens is if I were to drop this on the ground right now, it would actually shatter like glass. It's very stiff and rigid. After this process is done, it gets heated, this bell gets pressed in. Now the bell is very critical as well to the actual tone of the cymbal. So we put the bells in with a die. We have specific dies for each given series and size of cymbal that will make sure that that bell is the correct profile. Once it's through that stage, the cymbal will then get tempered, and then it'll go into the hammering and lathing process. Now, hammering is critical for shape. The byproduct of hammering will affect the tone of the cymbal based on what size hammer peen and how many hammer marks you put in the cymbal. So when you're hammering a cymbal, you don't hammer it and play test it. You generally hammer it and then check the profile shape to make sure it's shaped correctly. So we know that for any given weight and diameter and profile, we know basically what that sound's going to be.